Well, hi, everyone. I'm Charles Bass with the University of San Diego, and it is a pleasure to have you with us today. This webinar is brought to you by the USD Alumni Association, whose mission is to engage and enrich the Torero community for life. This is done through in-person and virtual programming, such as today's spotlight on USD's mission. What is it? Why was it recently updated? And what does it all mean? Here to help answer these questions and more is Dr. Michael Lovette-Colyer, USD's Vice President for Mission Integration. Michael began his service as Vice President on July 1st, 2021, leading the Division of Mission Integration in its work collaborating with all members of the university community to weave the mission, vision, and values of the institution into every aspect of campus life. He has been at USD since 2007, serving first as Director of University Ministry and as Assistant Vice President of Mission and Ministry. Under his capable leadership, the university ministry team focused on creating dynamic faith formation opportunities that speak to the questions, interests, and needs of Millennial and Generation Z students. Moreover, Michael greatly enhanced the university's immersion and community engagement offerings, especially through partnerships in San Diego and Tijuana. He has collaborated with many departments, including the Alumni Relations Office, and served on various university-wide committees, all of which have helped to elevate USD's Catholic identity. Michael earned his undergraduate degree from John Carroll University, a Master of Divinity degree from the Jesuit School of Theology, an MBA from Santa Clara University, and he saved the best for last, getting his PhD from the University of San Diego. Michael, please join us by turning on your camera, and welcome.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for that warm and gracious introduction. It's really a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Happy to have you here. First of all, how did you get to be so awesome? I'm just following your script.
I would never have suggested that's a good question, but it's whatever degree I might be awesome, I owe it all to my parents.
Okay, excellent. So Michael, before we talk about the mission, let's talk about your title as Vice President of Mission Integration. What led the name change for the division? What's the thought process behind that?
Yeah, many people in the alumni community might be aware that my predecessor in this role was Monsignor Dan Dillabo, also a USD alumni and a longtime key part of this university community, including to this day. And his title was Vice President of Mission and Ministry. And that was sort of the standard at Catholic colleges like USD around the country. More recently, however, there's been a shift to something like Vice President for Mission Integration. And the reason for that shift at USD and in other Catholic colleges like us is to highlight the way in which it's not only my job to animate and to elevate the Catholic identity, it's all of our jobs. And so myself and my colleagues, we think about this every day, all day long, but our key opportunity and our challenge is to integrate the Catholic identity into every aspect of campus life, especially the classroom with faculty development programs, but certainly in student affairs and residence halls, through human resources and the policies and protocols we adopt on campus. So it's not my job and my colleagues to do this, it's our job. So that's the reason for the change in the title.
Okay, that makes sense. So what is USD's mission?
Yeah, I'm excited to share that we do have an updated mission statement formally adopted, unanimously, in fact, by the Board of Trustees at their May meeting. The new mission reads as such: we are a contemporary Catholic university grounded in the liberal arts and anchored along an international border, advancing academic excellence to create a more inclusive, sustainable, and hopeful world. And of course, you don't have to remember that off the top of your head. It's now on the USD homepage, and it'll be featured in a variety of ways, as we start the new academic year, as we introduce new members of our community to this new mission.
Fantastic. What was the motivation behind revising the mission statement?
All the credit really goes to President Harris. His wise leadership identified that we are coming up on the end of our strategic plan. Our current strategic plan is titled Envisioning 2024. And of course, this is 2023, so that's coming quick. And the strategic plan, Envisioning 2024, was carefully planned to take us to the 75th anniversary of USD. So it's a momentous occasion, starting in this January, so just about 6 months from now. And so Dr. Harris's wisdom recognized that before we start a new strategic plan, it would be helpful for us as a community to think again and anew and to think together about our mission and how we best express who we are, what we're trying to accomplish, and what values guide us in that work before we get into the more concrete and specific work of identifying those goals. And so that was the plan. And one other piece, as we thought about it, we realized that the previous mission statement was adopted in 2004. So when we began revising to come up with this new mission statement, the previous mission statement was 18 years old. Best practice is to review and perhaps update a mission statement on a timelier basis than that. So in some senses, we were overdue for that process.
I might have been in a presentation you've made once or twice about this process, and you talk about the fact that 18 years, so much has changed in the world, in our community and around the world in the last 18 years. So, talk a little bit about the process that as the leader of this effort that you followed.
Yeah. Before I talk about the process, just to highlight, thinking about 2004, that was a long time ago. I often made the joke that the mission statement was 18 years old. So it was old enough to vote on whether or not it should be retained or revised. But also really interestingly, the previous mission statement was approved by the board in February of 2004. In February 2004, Facebook went live. Wow. So you think about the enormous amounts of technological development we've seen in those 18 years, not to mention the fact that, for example, the Catholic Church had seen 3 different popes leading us during that time. And there have been 4 presidents of the United States. We can think about all the ways the world had changed, not to mention a pandemic, of course. So there's definitely been an enormous amount of change that made it important for us as a community to think about what our mission is at this point. So the process was, we began last August. Dr. Harris, at our key leadership retreat, asked the strategic leadership team, so his direct reports, to consider whether or not the time was right to revise the mission statement. And we used some materials that he had found from this wonderful nonprofit organization called the Society College and University Planning. They have some materials that help communities think about their mission statement. So we did that as a leadership team. Seemed clear that the time would be right. So we said, well, if we're going to make this a goal for our work this year, we need to take that to the Board of Trustees at the start of the year to see if they agree. Ultimately, the authority to revise a mission statement rests with the board. So we didn't want to do anything as separate from them. At the board's retreat in late September, we shared information with them, asked them to consider the materials that we had, and they agreed that the time was right. And they asked us to do the work during the academic year with the goal of having the board approve a revised mission statement in their May meeting. So that set the parameters, if you will. After the board's retreat in late September, early October, we got busy trying to consult everybody we could on campus about what the mission statement could be and should be. We were inspired actually by the synod process that Pope Francis has initiated for the Catholic Church. And I'll spare the details for those who aren't particularly interested, but basically the idea is to listen to one another is what the synod is all about. And so our idea was to try to listen to one another in the university community, what we most appreciate about the current mission statement, what we thought might be missing, and then what our hope would be for a new one. So in the fall, Dr. Harris and I met with 10 different groups, gathered concrete pieces of feedback from more than 400 people. We also sent out a campus-wide email soliciting feedback. So that was the fall process. Over the holiday period, we convened a small writing group. There were 5 people, faculty and staff, who have been here a long time, who are very dedicated to USD and have a keen appreciation for our mission, and also who are sort of good and creative writers and thinkers. So we convened that group over the holidays to start to try to make sense out of all that feedback in the fall. The writing group put together an initial draft that then Dr. Harris and I took to the university community in the spring, getting their feedback, their ideas, their ways to refine it and make it better. And so that process eventually yielded at late April, what we basically have before us now, a final version that we took to the Board of Trustees in May. So more or less, that was the process.
Yeah, it was interesting to be a part of the process in several different groups, including the Alumni Association Board and others. So appreciate their opportunity to be involved. I know you can also when you open it up to so many people, you can get caught up in that in wordsmithing for days and days and days. And I'm sure you had to deal with a little bit of that, but it's great that so many people from so many different constituencies within the university community had a chance to have some input. And that was very intentional on your part, I know.
It was indeed. Yeah. We feel great about the final outcome, if you will, this revised mission. However, I feel just as good and maybe even a little better about the process, which means that we did our best to listen to as many people as we could, to get as many perspectives as possible. We couldn't always, adopt everybody's suggestion. That's simply impossible. However, we were as inclusive as we could be. And that is the reason why the outcome was so positive, is I think we heard from so many people who had such great insight into what this mission might be. There was an interesting little dynamic that emerged that in some ways is kind of humorous. Right from the beginning with the board, we realized that we wanted the new mission to be both short and distinctive. So in other words, to be concise enough to remember, but also to communicate something about the special characteristics of USD. Those two goals are in tension, because the more we talk about what makes USD special, the more words we need.
Right.
So the initial draft that we came up with in the writing group was too long. As we took that to people in the spring, almost every group said the same thing: that's too long. And then they would suggest additional words, ideas, or concepts that made it longer. Yeah. Because those words, concepts, and ideas are really important to them. So that was an ongoing dynamic, and one that we were able to laugh about at times, and it totally makes sense. Everybody has their own particular interest in what should be in the mission. I'm no different. Most of mine didn't make it, but I think the ones that did are really solid, and I'm grateful for those who shared their ideas.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to be to look at some of these iterations, I guess, and to think, well, that could be any school. There are elements that other schools could certainly claim, but I think that even the geographic nature of our current mission, with the being ground anchored along an international border, that is very distinctive. So I know. What would you say is different about the new statements the new statement compared to the previous ones?
Well, I think you hit on a key point right there, which is our new mission positions us geographically, if you will. We are anchored along an international border. And that is a part of what makes us unique or distinctive. We're one of the very few Catholic universities along an international border. And so we wanted to highlight that in some ways this mission could not apply to any other university in the country. It could only apply to USD, which we think is a good thing. The word anchor is interesting. It is inspired by, there's a movement in higher education to be or become an anchor institution, which refers to the ways in which USD and this community, the Linda Vista community, the broader San Diego community, has all kinds of positive impacts on our neighbors: economic, social, and otherwise, cultural. And so to say that we're an anchor institution honors that. And in addition, it signifies that this is permanent. We're not going to be here as long as it's convenient or effective and then perhaps move. We're not going to do that. This is truly where we are. We are part of this community, and we seek to be as genuine and as reciprocal in that relationship as we can. It's a little different. Some other public institutions or organizations, even universities, sometimes receive public funding to take on important work, but then when the funding runs out, they depart. For us, we said, no, this is where we are, who we are, and we're going to maintain these relationships permanently. So that depart, naming that, the fact that we're on the border is unique. And it also means that all the world's issues are available right here. All the global issues that we might want students to be able to think about and analyze and suggest possible solutions to are available close to home, as well as just across the border in Mexico. So we wanted to highlight that. Of course, it also honors all the work that's been done over the years through the Mulvaney Center, through the Kroc School of Peace and Justice to develop binational relationships. So that's an important piece. Another piece, of course, that's new is the language about contemporary Catholic. That language, contemporary Catholic, first became official at USD in the 2016 vision statement. That was a revision that coincided with the formation of the strategic plan that I mentioned before, Envisioning 2024. And at the time when we started talking about being a contemporary Catholic university, the focus there was we wanted to draw upon the richness of the Catholic tradition, the social, the spiritual, the moral tradition, and to apply it to solving humanity's urgent challenges. That's what contemporary Catholic meant, and it still does. In addition, it helps us recognize that another distinguishing feature of USD is the fact that we became a university with the merger of the previous College for Women, College for Men, and School of Law in 1972. So it's relatively recent, after the Second Vatican Council, which in many ways reshaped the Catholic Church. So when we say we're a contemporary Catholic, that's what we mean, is that we're a university very much inspired by the Second Vatican Council in the spirit of the vision of that council. A great example of this was here at USD. All 4 of our presidents have been lay people. We haven't had a priest or a nun serve as a president. A lot of other Catholic colleges have. And now they're transitioning in this new world to in a sense, be more like USD, to have lay people take on those important leadership positions. So that's an important distinction. We thought it was helpful to identify ourselves in a unique way in the 2016 vision statement, and that seemed to be productive and helpful. So we adopted it here in the new mission statement as well.
What do you find most inspiring about this mission statement, or about the new vision, mission, and value statements?
Yeah, so that's a good point. We started this process. Dr. Harris asked us to think about, and the Board of Trustees endorsed us to revise potentially the mission statement. As we did that and we wrestled with that tension between being concise and descriptive, we realized that no one statement could do everything we needed to be done. So we created not only a new mission, but also a new vision and a new set of core values. So it's sort of a fuller package. One of the things I find most inspiring about the new mission is the last piece of it, where we do specify who we are. We specify where we are, we just talked about that, but then we specify why we do what we do, which is to create a more inclusive, sustainable, and hopeful world. And I just love those 3 words. I think they do inspire me. They give me a lift as I think about getting up and coming to work in the morning to be at a place that is trying to make a more inclusive, sustainable, and hopeful world. I feel a lot of energy around that. Sign me up for that work. I think I especially like that hopeful part.
Yeah.
The previous mission talked about addressing humanity's urgent challenges, which is important work. I like that this, in a sense, flips that to focus in on the positive. Really what we want to be about is creating a world that is more hopeful. That's certainly what I want to be a part of. So I find that probably to be the most inspiring part.
Yeah, it was good to be in the room talking about that, and that resonated with so many people in some of the presentations you'd made, I thought. Have you had any pushback from people? I wouldn't expect there would be a lot, but I wonder if in fact why do we need to change our mission? We're not a different university, right? Has there been any kind of pushback?
A little bit. Pushback might be too strong of a term. There's been questions. Early on, there were questions about why do we need to do this? There was some concern that if we started this process, some really fundamental characteristics of who we are might be changed. So Dr. Harris and I realized that it was helpful at the beginning to be explicit about, there were some non-negotiable. When we first talked about doing this, I had a colleague, a really trusted and supportive colleague who's been at USD a long time, has sent her children here. Asked me, with sincere concern, does this mean that we might not be a Catholic university anymore? I said, no, not at all. That question is not on the table. In a sense, the task isn't to reevaluate core pieces of who we are, but more so to think about how do we best express them? What language do we use to communicate those pieces of our identity at this moment in time, 18 years on from when it had been done last? So there were questions about that, concerns about that. The one area where I had some interesting conversation was actually in the new vision statement, which I didn't read, so maybe I'll read it right now and then talk about that area of conversation. So the vision statement reads, strengthened by the Catholic intellectual tradition, we confront humanity's challenges by fostering peace, working for justice, and leading with love. So that last phrase, leading with love, has generated lots of conversation. And I think that's a good thing. It indicates that it's different, it's unique. I don't think the word love appears in the mission or vision statement of almost any other Catholic college in the country. I wonder if any other organization. So it's a really distinguishing phrase. Some people might feel that it's too touchy-feely, too loosey-goosey. What does love mean? It can mean anything or nothing. So does it really belong in this sort of formal document? I would take the position that it does. Love, of course, is the heart of the Christian message. Love also draws attention to the fact that at a university like USD, a Catholic university, we, of course, are educating our students' minds, but we also want to form their hearts to help them understand what it means to be human and what it means to love other people. This is essential. If we're not doing that, then we're not living up to our full potential. This idea of love, too, I think, connects us in an eloquent way to the Society of the Religious of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, one of the founding orders of USD. It's all about the Sacred Heart, and their image is of a heart open to the world. So this idea of leading with love is exactly that, inspired by their witness, their charism. We're trying to continue that on. And then one other piece, I think the idea of leading with love draws attention to, we do want to be educating and forming servant leaders, students who are going to be equipped and inspired to go out into the world and exercise leadership on behalf of the common good. And that's leading with love. It's not leading to dominate or leading in order to accomplish or achieve power or prestige, but it's leading to make a difference, to make the world a better place. And that's a part of who we are. We've been for a long time. So I think leading with love is great expression. Some other people don't resonate with it as much as I do, and that's fine.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to make everybody happy all the time, but I was very pleased to see that made the final version. When I first heard it, I did think about it being in that kind of a touchy-feely, but the way you just described all the ways that is important to USD and who we are, and the the connection to our past, which on behalf of the Alumni Association, we certainly appreciate that. So I'm glad it made the cut. So what did you learn in it? You just mentioned your colleague, the colleague who asked, are we going to not be Catholic anymore? What did you learn from being a part of this process?
One of the things I learned is that, and maybe it wasn't a discovery, meaning a brand new learning, but it was a reminder that there are a lot of people here at USD who care deeply about the institution, who care about this place, who are incredibly invested in it, including its mission and our vision and our values. We are a mission-driven organization for sure. And perhaps, that could be underappreciated. I have perhaps at times not appreciated that as fully as I might, because we're also very dynamic and busy, and there's just lots of things to accomplish. And at times there's moments of conflict or challenge regarding internal things or external things that maybe obscure that. But going through this process and having all those listening sessions with all of our constituent groups and listening to what people love and appreciate about USD, so often it is things that we're in and are now in the mission, vision, and values. So people really are deeply connected. It really matters to them. One other sort of nuance to all that is when we ask people what they hope the new mission might express, people do have great hopes for the institution. And it filled me with more hope that we have done significant work in the first 75 years, if you will. And I think we can do even more in the next 75 years based on people's commitment, their aspirations, and their willingness to do the work.
That's great. You put in so much time on this process. I don't know if you've banned the use of the word mission in your life now. It is part of your title, so I guess you have to keep it. But it's a talk about a labor of love. I know that this has been important to you, and it's great to have gotten to this point. I know it took a year, but it's good to know that there was so much thought and intention put into this process versus just coming up with some new catchphrase or something like that. I know again, having, what was it, 900 bits of discrete information I think you've shared before. That's pretty impressive. What happens next? So what's going to be next?
Yeah, just to highlight, you're right there, Charles. You have a great memory that we did receive feedback, participation, insight from over 900 people into this process. So we're very excited about that. That it's a widely people are widely familiar with it already, which sets us up for what's next, which is to roll it out, to make sure our community is aware of it, that they can think about how they're going to implement it or align their work with it. And that's already begun. Our colleagues in university publications have created a beautiful card that we just started distributing this summer already at the President's Forum and other events. It looks like this. And it lists the statements on it. Our hope is that people will take them, put them in their office, keep them on their desk, maybe next to their computer, so they can be just reminded of this new vision, mission, and values. So that's one first step. The next step is as we gear up right now, today's July 24th, as we get ready for August and all the new students coming to campus and new faculty and staff, we will introduce them to the new vision, mission, and values through new employee orientation, new faculty orientation, new student orientation. And then, of course, I mentioned the strategic planning process. That will kick off here in August as well. And so that group that will be focused in on that will use the vision, mission, and values as a foundation.
That's fantastic.
This is who we are and what we're trying to accomplish. And these are the values that guide us. What are the concrete or the specific SMART goals that we want to identify for ourselves over the next 5 or 7 years? And they'll be directly linked to these foundational documents. So it's going to be immensely valuable, not only helping people understand when they come to USD who we are and what we're about, but also charting the path forward in the new strategic plan.
Well, that's fantastic. And that's about going to wrap up our program today. Do you have any last words about the mission, vision, and values statements?
No, I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Harris for the opportunity to work with him on this important and uplifting process, but more importantly to everybody who was a part of it, including all the alums who participated in various ways and all the people on campus, current faculty, staff, and students. It's been a real delight and real inspiration to be a part of the process. I look forward to talking with more people about the process as well as the result, as well as anything else that has to do with USD.
That's fantastic. Well, I encourage people to tune in, to go to the website, sandiego.edu, and you can click on the About tab where you can read all about the mission, vision, and values statements. You can also watch a video that includes several members of the writing group and their thought process as they worked through to get to this mission statement that we'll read one more time. We are a contemporary Catholic university grounded in the liberal arts and anchored along an international border, advancing academic excellence to create a more inclusive, sustainable, and hopeful world. Excellent work, Michael. Thanks again for joining us today. Again, go to sandiego.edu and click on the About tab to read more about the mission. And a reminder that the USD Alumni Association has hosted more than 200 virtual events in the last couple of years, and I invite you to check those out on the USD Alumni Association's YouTube channel, where you can catch up on a wide variety of programming. Thanks to Kara Marsh, Kara Marsh Prophet, who today is celebrating her 19th anniversary as a USD employee, for her behind-the-scenes help. And thanks to all of you for joining us. Go Toreros!